the New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain. Back again this week with Darrell Webster joining us. Welcome to the show, Darrell.
Good to be here, Paul. G'day.
Had lots to delve into today. Probably the big one that we have to address is Apple Vision Pro. So that's gonna be a pretty important part of the show today. But there's lots more going on. Some space news as far as New Zealand's concerned. A deep tech company in New Zealand, Nilo, I believe is the correct way to say their name, that IKEA are investing in. There's some interesting things down the AI and ChatGPT track. Airlines stepping up with their in-flight entertainment, 4K displays, Bluetooth, and some changes in investments into the world of chip manufacturing. And also we'll delve a bit into the world of Microsoft and particularly the 365 world. But before we start, big thank you to our show partners, 1NZ, 2 Degrees, Spark, HP, and Gorilla Technology. And also, can you give us maybe a little bit of an intro for those that haven't heard you on the show before or that have forgotten since you were last with us?
Since I was last year, like 4 or 5 years ago, yeah. I'm Darrell Webster, also known in the community as Darrell as a Service. Has a ring to it with the tech that I'm into. I am a Microsoft 365 consultant. I delve into change management, do a bit of tech as well. And I am now an independent consultant as Modern Work Mentor. So you can get Darrell as a Service.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Well, let's jump in. First up on the New Zealand front, we've had the national space policy launched, and so look, it's a really interesting area that New Zealand has become such an active player in the world of aerospace and space. We're now a few years in with having a New Zealand space agency, and so this new policy. Look, I think it's encouraging to see this sort of thing get developed. That we've got policy as a country. I guess what I'm looking for is more, what's the government going to throw behind this sector? What's next? There's a fair bit there in the policy, which I think most of it is value statements and our role as stewards of space and earth environments, the role of innovation and coming from New Zealand, our responsibilities and the approach to partnership. So yeah, there's a chunk of stuff in there, but ultimately we have that challenge. We're competing with the rest of the world, don't we? And so that's probably the big challenge that most that are in this area are wanting to get as much help from the government to sort of make it easy for them to progress. They want to be able to raise funds easily, and they want to be able to operate without ridiculous levels of red tape, as it were. So that's, I guess, my view of it. I'm looking forward to the New Zealand Aerospace Summit that's coming up in Christchurch in the not too distant future. I think, what's the dates? 11th and 12th of September. So that's probably the big event where we'll get to hear a bit of feedback on the summit, how the government are going, how the sector's going. Very much it's a growing space as far as far as the New Zealand economy is concerned. And it's been really exciting. Some of the guests that we've had across the New Zealand Tech Podcast, over the years, and we'll continue probably to ramp that up. So yeah, really pleasing to see that the government's not completely sitting still here. But of course, there's only so much resources that are sort of allocated to the sort of broader space and aerospace sort of sectors right now, and I don't know, that may be a challenge in terms of keeping us competitive.
Mm. Look, I think there's some things in this policy I wouldn't have thought of, that stewardship side of things. When I think of space and what we're putting into space, it's good to see that they're considering things like light pollution and, just having some responsibility around how much we're putting up there.
Yep.
And, New Zealand is known for its clean, green reputation. And maybe that does need to extend into space as well.
Yeah, look, I think when I looked at most of those things, they're kind of as you would expect for New Zealand, but it's important to articulate these things as well, isn't it? Now the other piece that's sort of in that space world that I'm not sure that we covered off, it was maybe a couple of weeks or so, maybe even 3 weeks back now. The news that Rocket Lab had acquired some of the key assets of Virgin Orbit, which of course was one of Richard Branson's two space companies. Virgin Orbit, really their thing was about getting satellites into space and using a 747 as sort of a launch vehicle. So rather than a rocket having to go straight up from the ground, it would launch off the airplane as an approach. And seems like that just hasn't played out that well. I think it's a reminder of just how hard space is, and just how well the companies that are succeeding in space are doing. And we look at Rocket Lab. There's probably a degree to which we just take Rocket Lab and others within the sector here for granted in New Zealand. It's like, oh yeah, that's what we do. We figure these little problems out, and away we go. But realistically, it's incredibly hard to get into space, and in such a way that's commercially viable. So I think we've got to take our hats off to those that are in the sector, that are making it work, and we want to get behind them, and and I guess hope that the government is able to provide the appropriate levels of support along the way. So $16.1 million sort of acquisition of some of the assets there of Virgin Orbit. Of course, there is also the other side where we still see Virgin working, which is Virgin Galactic, and their role is taking people up to space and getting you up there to I don't know, probably to the Kármán line, to that sort of into sort of a weightless state. And of course, there's some others that are playing in that area now. And of course, we've probably all seen the footage of Bezos going up to space and so on, and them getting there. What is it? I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes of weightlessness, and then coming back to Earth. So it's an interesting scenario when you look at just how incredibly successful the Virgin businesses have been, and how successful Sir Richard Branson has been with his business empire. He has he's struggled, I think you could say, in his overall focus on space.
Well, I mean, my first question was, is this the Virgin Galactic side of it? But that's apparently still a focus and still aim to go strong. But I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to launch something off a 747, approaching at a certain angle, and just release angle, velocity. There's much bigger minds than me that's working on this, but that would be a hard thing to do.
Yeah, look, and look, there's active news and so on coming through on Virgin Galactic's Twitter. So I think they're trying to show that, hey, we're here, we're relevant, we're going to pull this stuff off. And of course, there's Kiwis that are in there who have put down their funds to be able to go to space with Virgin Galactic. And look, let's hope everybody gets their ride to space, and that it's not too many years off. Because I think those that have put down their money were probably under the impression they'd be amongst the first people, and we've still got I guess those that are going up at the moment are paying really much bigger sums generally to get up into space at this point. And I guess it's not a quick and easy thing to do to be launching people into space, especially when you want to do it safely. So, but good on them. Now, also on the New Zealand front, IKEA have invested in Nilo, which is a deep tech firm focused on plastics, based in Auckland. And their goal seems to be very much around converting our waste products, particularly plastics, to create commercial resins that can replace harmful chemicals that are used, for instance, with engineered timber, and into other areas where effectively we put to use this waste and create a bit of a circular scenario, rather than we end up with products that can't be recycled, which sounds really good. And seeing IKEA having taken about an eighth of the business. Let's hope that that leads to some good commercial outcomes over time.
Yeah, I dare say that some of those perishing white plastic chairs on our porches might make their way through to this recycling and probably end up being IKEA chairs.
Yeah, well, if you can get that happening, so the old stuff becomes, the new stuff and so on. Yeah, look, I mean, I think if we can repurpose, a lot more rather than it ending up in landfill, it's definitely a place we need to get to. It's how practical is it to get there, and I'm very hopeful that the team at Nilo are very innovative in their chemistry and engineering and so on, and that they can solve some of these issues, because we're not very good at recycling plastic today. That seems to be the scenario. Not very good at all in New Zealand. So
We tend to ship it, don't we?
we certainly have done, in the past, and but those options I think have probably been reducing over time. Now, it was interesting to read that United Airlines are moving through, or have agreed to a deal with Panasonic's team who handle the in-flight entertainment systems. That's going to see airplanes upgraded to have 4K displays and Bluetooth. It's encouraging to sort of see this forward movement in terms of the technology going into their planes. I think they're talking around 300,000 seats that are getting upgraded. So that's a fair number of planes, and they are able to I think put them into existing aircraft, but potentially, although I read on this one it's going to be the focus is on new Boeing 787 and Airbus A321 XLR aircraft. So pretty encouraging. The other thing was the USB-C ports capable of charging devices
Finally.
at up to a hundred 100 watts. So yeah, the idea that you can actually keep your laptop
Yep.
or your phone or whatever charged, and probably all sorts of other gadgets that some people will be carrying around, but moving that across to USB-C and having that sort of throughput is very, very encouraging. I think they're talking about so yeah, there's some I guess challenges, and one of the things is that these sort of upgrades take a long time. So we're talking about they're not even starting with the upgrade until 2025. So it's I guess that's how it is, right? But
Yeah.
I guess the question is, does this stuff actually matter, or do we all have enough gadgets and so on for our own content?
Mm.
And certainly on I mean, it's not the case on our domestic flights generally in New Zealand, but more and more so, we've got gadgets with us. We've got internet on those international flights, so we've got a lot of flexibility. And with Starlink and other low Earth orbit satellites starting to offer some pretty snappy internet on planes, do we actually care about what's on the seat back?
Well, I think it still helps to have something standard that's there for those who aren't bringing their devices in. And I think we're talking about international flights. I wouldn't expect to see these on domestic United flights unless it was long haul east to west or west to east. I think a 4K screen, uh, my instant thought was, oh, does it mean I can use it as a second monitor while I'm working on my laptop? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, I think that the 100 watts charging though is certainly something that has become important now with the types of devices that we have and the power that we need. The trickle charging that we'd have from the standard USB that's been in the planes for some time just isn't enough. So
Yep. Yeah, look, I'm looking forward to seeing these things improve, but it's not necessarily a necessity for all of us. They're talking about 13-inch displays for their first class passengers, and economy being 10-inch. So it's they're not massive, but that's part of the balancing act here, isn't it? Is keeping it affordable to put those upgrades in place as well. But there does seem to be this sort of degree to which for this, there's specialized in-flight entertainment systems. It is a specialized area, and that means there's cost implications, right? This isn't just sort of stuff you buy off the shelf. And we have seen it in the past where airlines, more of the budget end, I think where I've noticed it anyway, will have tablets and so on as an alternative. And that's probably a much cheaper option where you give out, potentially you give out tablets or, what have you, rather than having built in. So, I think it's just going to be an interesting journey to see how it plays out in the years ahead, where we're all sort of carrying our own gadgets. How important is it to have that stuff in there? That said, you're talking about very expensive hardware in terms of the planes themselves. So the cost of keeping the entertainment systems up to date isn't necessarily such a big deal, right?
yeah.
Oh, well, it'll be an interesting one to watch. Now, one story that caught my attention recently was around some dramas with ChatGPT. And look, I'm always encouraging people, look at the latest technology, try out the latest technology, see how you can apply it, whether it's personally or professionally. It's really important for us not to get to fall behind. And what we've heard about is a scenario where the technology has maybe been utilised in a manner that's created some issues from a legal standpoint. And when it comes to relying on Chat GPT to prepare uh, your legal case, I think the lesson is it's very, very important to make sure that what you're actually getting in terms of output is worthy. And we've been, I guess, seeing more and more around Chat GPT hallucinations, which legal cases or other scenarios are creating dramas. And we've now seen sort of coverage with some researchers worrying that these hallucinations and the things that are being imagined actually can't be solved. It wouldn't be a good place for us to be with AI if it's just not ever going to get to a trustworthy state, would it?
No. Well, I think I know maybe it's good to compare some of the AI services here, but where ChatGPT isn't known for providing references and being able to follow up and see where did this source come from and can I check it out for myself.
Mm.
If you compare it to the Bing chat side of things where the references are there, that's important. And that's where this became the problem, because they were looking for references and cases and trying to say this and that, and the cases were made up. And lawyers have said that if you really were going to put your name on a case like this, you should be checking all your references. And apparently, it's as simple as taking a few of the few things to talk about the case in the book and wherever it's found. You can go to Google Scholarly apparently and plug those details in. With 30 seconds, you can tell this is a real case.
Yeah, I think the particular legal situation that came up, and I think it was related to a Colombian airline that was being sued, right? And it seems like the lawyer had gone to ChatGPT, asking for examples, and then it gone back to ChatGPT to ask for it to, double check and make sure everything was solid, and it came back and said yes, and then I think provided some links. And one of the fascinating things is some of these links that are provided can be completely bogus. You ask for the source material and you'll click on it. It goes to a very general page that's like, well, no, that doesn't verify what's being said here. And so you would tend to think that you should be able to apply some technology that goes through and actually gets a verification, and that might be an AI system to check the AI system. But there may need to be some pretty stringent elements to that checking when you can see Chat GPT and the like cheating a little bit. But definitely be keen to hear from any listeners who have had really good or really bad experiences with the tech. Interesting, I heard someone's commentary the other day on Google Bard, and they were saying that they felt that Google Bard was sort of improving at a reasonable clip. It seemed pretty poor probably when we first saw it. But I thought, well, that's encouraging. I will have to have another look and see how things are progressing on that front. You had any particular experiences there, Darrell?
Not so much. I know the early Bard experiences, there was arguments over basic arithmetic, but
as with ChatGPT, I think too.
and I think it was said too that that Google has a lot more to lose. So that's why they were more cautious in how they're introducing AI, where Bing, it was all about trying to work from the ground up they're not certainly market share in terms of search results. So you had those two differences in approach. But yeah, good to hear. And you would expect that from the indexing and all the sources that Google have, that Bard could pull it off eventually.
Now we've heard that the EU, the European Union, are making something of an investment in the future of tech in the EU going forward. An $8.7 billion dollars US of aid for. I don't know if aid's the right term. I guess it is. It's just not how we usually have it applied. For technology innovation projects, and what I came across in Reuters was talking around a focus on microelectronics, communication technology projects as the EU is trying to be at the cutting edge of technology. And this is interesting because we've seen the US investing into particularly into microchip manufacturing facilities, and that seems like this is partly where the EU side could go, at least into chip design, manufacturing, also looking at 5G and 6G, technology from a telecommunications perspective, but also autonomous driving and artificial intelligence and quantum computing. So they're kind of sort of potentially making funds available in any which direction, as long as it's sort of exciting and cutting edge and might help with the EU's economy in the longer term. So I'm kind of curious whether we'll hear much more about how these funds are spent and what it leads to.
Is this also a move to try and reduce the dependency on Taiwan, for example, and the chip manufacturing there, that by diversifying and building up the industries around the planet, you're not reliant on just that one area that could be at risk?
Yeah, look, I haven't seen that specifically stated on this one, but what we do know is there are sort of geopolitical things going on, and certainly if we look at where Russia are at currently with access to certain technologies, that's something that can be quite challenging and quite crippling to an economy to be cut off from the latest technology. And I'm sure the European Commission wants to ensure that they're in a good state regardless of what happens on that geopolitical front with China, with Taiwan, and so on. So I think it'll be an interesting time ahead, and I'm just not sure whether we're going to get the insights as to where this funding goes and what it achieves. But I think we're getting pretty used to governments investing into particular areas of technology and innovation, and I think now's an important time for that. Now we do need to delve into Apple's WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference. This comes around every year, but of course this year something that wasn't a huge secret was that Apple were expected to unleash their virtual reality or augmented reality headset. And in fact, we'd seen some reasonably good renders of it that weren't a million miles off, over quite a period of months. So, when it did appear and it's looked sort of ski goggle
Yep.
like and so on. It didn't appear to be 100 million miles away from those renders. Um, I guess that there's so many questions here, but from hearing from folks that got to see and got to wear the Apple Vision Pro, it really comes across as though Apple have done one of the things that we know them for, which is they've sort of waited it out a little bit. They're not the first to move in this area, and they've worked hard to innovate and come up with a product that is a step above what others are doing. I guess the big question here is, can Apple turn this into something that's going to be a genuinely solid business for them? And can they bring augmented reality, virtual reality into the mainstream and make it a thing that we all want to be involved in on a daily sort of basis, right? We look at what they did with the smartphone, and there were smartphones before Apple came along, but the iPhone helped turn the smartphone into something that everybody wanted, and it wasn't too long before the large majority of the population would have a smartphone. And although they don't hold the biggest market share in the smartphone, they certainly make the biggest profits. And so, looking at the Apple Vision Pro, $3,500 US. I think when I converted that last week into New Zealand dollars and then added GST, because that's certainly from a consumer perspective, how things tend to play out. It's really in the hands of consumers. I'm sure at the price point it's coming at, yes, businesses too. But if we talk about it as a GST inclusive price, New Zealand, $6,700. Certainly likely to not be under $6,500 unless there's an exchange rate change. So this is a really hefty purchase. There aren't too many Apple products probably selling at that sort of price point, and certainly not to consumers. So I don't know. A few thoughts I'll throw out, then keen to hear yours. It does have the word Pro on the end. We're used to iPhones and MacBooks and other things with Pro being a more expensive product. So it does leave the door open that there's going to be a lower cost Apple Vision product. It doesn't come out until early 2024, and that's the US release. We don't actually know the New Zealand release, despite what New Zealand news media shared. I was interviewed by one of the TV stations last week, and I went back and had a look at what they published, and it's the usual sort of scenario where 10-15 minute interview, they take a couple of slices. So there wasn't too much of what I had to share in there, because they're trying to package this up for a really broad audience. But I think they had mentioned probably they'd forgotten that we add GST to price these sort of prices. So I think they were maybe talking about a $5,700 type of price, so a lower price point. And there was a comment of availability sort of early next year, so a little bit of a mix up, but I think we've kind of got a reasonably big picture on it. The other piece is, we used to use this term a lot with new technologies, was killer app. What's the killer app? And I think there is still a really big question. What's the killer app? What's the thing that would make us all want the Apple Vision Pro? And I think different people will have some different viewpoints on what that is. And yeah, there's a whole lot we could probably delve into and comparing it to, what exists from Microsoft, from Meta, and others. But I think on everything we're seeing so far, this looks streets ahead of everybody else's products. But we have a pricing challenge, and
A use case challenge?
I'm not sure. Yeah, whether we have found what's that use case that would drive people to use this a lot.
Yeah. Like I relate to the use case in my early experiences of trying out AR VR tech. It is a specialist area, it would seem, and this is what Apple's trying to crack is it is about reframing it as a new form of computing, spatial computing.
Yep.
And at the moment, it's not something that many people can relate to or see a use case in. But what I have seen of Vision Pro is that it is streaks ahead. It is setting a new standard, therefore the price. But we do expect that to come down eventually, like we did with the first generation of iPhones. As it comes down and the tech gets smaller, or they can mass produce it. On mass producing, though, and I think this plays into why there'll be a delay in making it available worldwide. Why start in the US? Is because they want to make sure that it is a good fitting experience. And there was definitely a lot of talk in terms of even the people trying it out, various different pieces that you needed to put on to make sure it was going to be comfortable, that it was going to, fit your width of your eyes, but also if you did have prescription glasses, dropping in these special magnetized lenses that would go into it.
Yeah.
So a lot of sort of aspects around that in terms of taking it to a wider market. But I mean, what I see and I've watched definitely a few different recounts of people's experiences. It's the same old story. How do you show something like that in a video and do it justice? And it's not until you sort of pop it on. Microsoft did a reasonably good job with that. And 7 years ago, when they brought out HoloLens, and they had a way of having this roving camera that would make it look like this is the viewpoint.
Yes,
but
yeah,
in reality,
they did a cool job of it, but but the reality wasn't as good, was it?
Right. Yeah, it was that whole sort of viewing angle in terms of that real AR, and I think this is where
the field of view was limited because of how the technology was in terms of what was overlaid. You were looking through a screen, so you could see the outside world. The Apple approach to augmented reality is quite different.
Yeah, like we know it is AR and VR, but I heard the term tossed around as XR, which means I guess you can cross over between it. Now, the Vision Pro isn't truly AR. It is just really good cameras bringing your view of your room or wherever you are into your view and overlaying the content and the apps on top of that. And this ability to be able to dial your focus in and out is actually something that's quite special too. I mean, I know I would be using a headset like that sometimes to just get that focus, to bring a certain piece of work in front of me and not see anything else around me. But at the same time, being able to dial in and feel like I've got infinite space for monitors would be quite something.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm absolutely fascinated as to how this plays out. Yeah, could you wear this while you're driving your vehicle to work? What are the scenarios? What are those edge cases of where's acceptable, where's not, right? Because if you think of just driving your I don't know, typical car, or maybe an older car, and if the software was there, lets you kind of see what's happening in the outside world. You've got apparently a very full sort of field of view, no limitations there. and then you could kind of build in the kind of the heads up display type
Mhm.
things of, speedos, and you can have the technology kind of, showing the map on the screens. You're not having to look around at your GPS, look around at your radio. You can voice control it for, what audio you want to listen to. That to me doesn't sound like something that they're likely to be targeting at this point in time.
Mm.
But it's sort of wondering where are these different use cases? Where's it going to play out? Is it just an alternative way uh, to to work? Set up your keyboard and mouse, and you'll work everything in the screen, and it looks as though you're operating on a, might feel like operating on the biggest, wraparound screen that's never been invented.
Mm.
Well, that could be cool. Watching movies and the equivalent of going to an IMAX, but actually you're just you're kicking back while you're on the bus to work, or
Mm.
whatever these other scenarios are. So there's interesting possibilities, but how it actually plays out, whether the those sort of use cases are really, really good, or whether it doesn't quite come off as good in the real world. And then obviously down to the price points. We've seen the Apple watch business has been an interesting there's been an interesting one to follow. I think I read that they've sold 100. Oh, I need to check my stats. I had a feeling there were, I should check this. The number of Apple watches sold. And let me have a look. Oh yeah,
Don't
here we
ask
go.
ChatGPT.
They were expected to reach. This is according to some random source on the internet. Well, a few, and some of them are reasonably big. Big sites, actually, to be fair, that are all quoting this, that they're expected to get to and this was by 2022, 140 million Apple watches in the market. So that is a pretty large amount of money. We're well into the tens of billions of dollars there. Now that's at the other end of the scale, but the people that are buying Apple watches, usually Apple fans that are part of their broader ecosystem. So you could cut that back to a much smaller percentage. And I guess that's the question. Could it be as big as the Apple Watch business quite quickly? Which means, so 1 in 10 Apple Watch owners could buy the Vision Pro. Well, it's probably that sort of percentage of Apple, fans, Apple users, that could probably afford this sort of money if they really, really wanted it.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down to just how compelling it is. You've got to imagine there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to lay down their cash anyway. The question is that 1 million? And if it were 1 million, that's still $3.5 billion US, which goes a fairly long way to covering off the research and development and the production, and then future generations, future things. I mean, to me, if they can make it a compelling product that people are going to use on a regular basis, and that that's the unknown to someone that hasn't used it, and who hasn't really gone in with the other VR and AR products to a big degree in the past. You try them out, use them, take a spin on the HoloLens. I did a walk. I think it was somewhere in the US event Microsoft put on, and I went for a walk on Mars with Buzz Aldrin, I think, was commentating and was there and stuff, and it was really neat. But it didn't sort of compel me to want to spend my whole day
Mm.
with the technology on my head. If Apple can cross that line, then they have a tremendous business here.
Yeah.
If you would wear it all day rather than looking at a computer screen, a big computer screen, then potentially it pays for itself.
Hmm.
A really big kind of wraparound
Yeah.
wide computer screen is into the thousands of dollars. You've got a fair bit of computing power, and it does all sorts of other things for you. I don't know. There's some possibilities where it adds up, but there's enough unknown there
Mm.
that I probably I'm not sure I'd have the confidence to place a huge bet on it.
Mm.
But if it comes off from an investment perspective, if it really comes off, this is going to add a lot
Mm.
to Apple's bottom line.
I think, yeah, just think about why the iPhone was successful. Eventually, it was because developers got behind it. They built their apps. They came up with the other scenarios. Apple kept innovating and added more sensors, more cameras, more this and that. They've extended further into wearables and health and the like, even down to emergency services and been able to crash detection. Um, this is the trajectory that they're hoping for with Vision Pro. And, as a starting point, it's going to be helpful that you can take your mobile apps and use them in your headset, even at just a 2D perspective. But getting the developers on board to say, okay, where are you going to go to from here? You've got this app, which is now a 2D thing that can float in the air, and you can interact with it by looking at things and then making little micro movements with pinching stuff. Great. You've improved on how you interact with it. You've improved on accuracy and refresh rate so people don't get motion sickness. But what are you going to do, developers? You're going to sort of think a bit wider than this and try and take advantage of the other sensory things that are possible within a spatial computing, and that's where they need to win that sort of innovation over for app developers to extend and almost create more of those unthought of, unheard of use cases.
Mm. And then the question is, what will the Apple Vision Lite look like? Is it a standard pair of glasses like I'm wearing today? Just looks like a standard pair of glasses, but it gives you, some element of this as chips get smaller, batteries get smaller, things get more efficient and so on. We're talking some sort of future version, which is contact lenses or some light shining into your eyes. I mean, who knows what the possibilities are? But I think one of the things we've learned, it's pretty hard to work out where we're going to be a few decades ahead, even at times a few weeks or months ahead,
much less 150 years.
So I think that there are a whole lot of possibilities here. Whether Apple have a hit on their hands with the version 1 product, whether they kill it off after that, or whether it's got a long future. I think there's a few pieces that come into play here, but probably the biggest of all for me is whether this is something that people that buy it will be using it every single day. If most of their buyers can find something that entices them to wear this every single day, then they're in a very, very strong position, because I don't think most owners of existing headsets are probably in that space. Now, on the flip side, do I think it's good for humanity that we're all putting something on our heads and getting even we spend enough time looking at screens as it is, to have something that's placed directly on, like the Apple Vision Pro. I guess you've got certain scenarios it's that's okay, but again, that's probably a whole nother sort of rabbit hole to delve into about the future of humanity and us all becoming cyborgs or something.
Well, all having to have the Apple Vision Pro, like we do when we need to airdrop things, or these are personalized devices purely from fitting, and even, for lens, both you and I wear glasses. So it's not like we're going to take this device and put it on our loved ones' heads and then, here, you try this, you try that. Um, yeah, it's also really designed for you and your experience.
Hmm.
So while you might be able to see the floating ghost of Paul come through as he comes to talk over to me, and Apple Vision Pro makes you appear through my content so I can have a chat with you, it's still about me and what I can see on my screen. So yeah, I think interesting space. I look, if I had the money, I would use one. I'd get one. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to trying out the Vision Pro, and I've enjoyed trying a bunch of these technologies over the years, and they're fun, and they're only getting better, and this looks like a really nice step up. So well done on Apple. Well done, Apple. Let's see if you can really turn that into something that we all will desire enough to drop our hard-earned money on. And then of course there's the whole business aspects, and that's probably another viewpoint, because they're crossing over, very much it's basically the same price point as where Microsoft are at, that $3,500 US price point. And Microsoft have done reasonably well when you consider the pricing level. But yeah, have we got a lot of people that are using the technology every day? I think there's certain niches where it's brilliant, but it's not something that we're hearing about every day, of HoloLens this and HoloLens that, and that it's the be all end all device. So yeah, interesting times ahead. There was a bunch more at Worldwide Developers Conference from Apple as well. The 15-inch MacBook Air, I'm pleased to see that one announced by Apple. I've always felt it's I don't know, a little bit of a cheeky thing on Apple's part, when probably most laptops sold today are in that sort of 15-inch size. And to get a 15-inch laptop from Apple was a reasonably pricey endeavor in the past. The sizes have changed a bit now. We've got I think 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, but basically as the screen size went up, there were huge price premiums. So having the 15-inch MacBook Air start to become available at a bit more of a reasonable level. I think the what's the starting price for New Zealand with the 15? I think we're two. Let me double check. I had it here a minute ago. Yeah, so the 13-inch one is at 2049, and no, I can't still see the 15-inch price. So I'll come back to that in a minute. But yeah, good to see. Yeah, Apple filling in some gaps there. So
Yeah, more than enough too with the M2 chip, really. So an Apple Air Apple Mac Air is it's actually becoming almost a standard issue too for some corporate laptops as well, because it becomes affordable, but it's definitely capable.
Yeah, yep. 2.5K, so 2499 for the 15-inch. A word of caution though, the Apple are continuing to sell computers with 8 gigs of RAM as standard, and I've heard an argument that with the M2 chip that they run, like a computer with a lot more than that. But I think most of us probably want 16 gigs of RAM in in a new laptop purchase. So
Yep.
as a minimum, and because this is a MacBook Air, it is limited at this point to one external display. So which is a pretty will be a pretty frustrating thing to some people who plug into their dock and they've got two displays. Yeah, I like to have one big ultra widescreen sort of monitor rather than multi as a preference. But yeah, multi displays, you get to pick another Mac in that case if you want to be in the Mac ecosystem. And yeah, I guess it highlights some of the benefits of maybe going non-Apple still are pretty enticing for a bang for buck perspective. And you can certainly get a certainly at a consumer level, you can get a consumer level laptop that's going to support multiple monitors through a dock and stuff for probably half that sort of price in some cases. So yeah, there's still that Apple premium there, isn't there? Yeah. Now, Darrell, just I think before we finish up, it'd be good just if you wanted to sort of, since sort of the Microsoft 365 world is is where you kind of work on a day-to-day basis. So I was curious, any particular areas you wanted to mention that have been you've been finding have been pretty interesting to people recently. Of course, Microsoft continuing to refresh their world of cloud products. Probably Microsoft Loop quite recently. But yeah, what's standing out for you?
Well, I think they're definitely leading with AI and Copilot and bringing that to many different places. So their partnership with OpenAI has definitely brought some interesting technology to the forefront. I think what if I go back to like one of the themes that Satya had for Microsoft Ignite last year, and we all we're looking down the barrel of, okay, here comes some potential financial troubles across the world. And so already talking about what can we make better use of that we already have. And I think that was actually hinting towards the likes of Copilot and making better use of the information that we currently have. So the way that they've been introducing it into all of their different products and making it so that you can create a search from wherever you are, leverage whatever capabilities you have in an application, and summarize something or create some slides or find this information that we already have. That's really what they're preparing for. And we don't know at this stage what cost might be involved with that. We have seen certainly a diversification of premium licenses and suites and various things with Microsoft Viva. But Copilot, I think, will be an interesting one when they do release it and talk about how that might be priced. I see that if they do a good job of it, it will actually be something that could potentially revolutionize the way we work in productivity space. Talking of our earlier discussion about sources, that's still going to be important. So Copilot in this space is more about using information within your organization, maybe tapping into a bit of what's public and available. But you'd still want to know where this information came from and how good the source was. So that, yeah, they're leaning right into that, building it into Copilot for PowerPoint, Copilot for Power BI, Word, etc. And then also building it into new products like Microsoft Loop.
I think there's some interesting potential there. If you can make a product, or if a product can make you much more productive, and if there aren't very easy to access equivalents, right? What's that worth? if you've got a product that could save you, let's say it could save every user of it 10 hours a month. That's a pretty valuable thing. Now, of course, it depends. Yeah, what else is there in the market that can do the same thing, and so on. But the Microsoft suite has has a fairly strong hold within most businesses and organizations. Less so within the startup sector, but certainly the sort of market share figures we can compare to to Google's is pretty strong when it comes to on that productivity suite front. And a scenario in which they decide to charge what might feel like an exorbitant sort of figure compared to what some people might pay for for their product today. Look, it could be possible if it really makes that much of a saving in time, if there isn't some good sort of strong competition in terms of add-ons and bits and pieces, which you would tend to think there would be. So I think we'll just have to we're going to have to watch that one and see how Microsoft plays. But you can imagine they're wanting a return on their investment in OpenAI, and they're definitely going to be looking for adding some extra options that businesses and organizations will pay for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking at one of the key problems is trying to find our information, running search and finding our stuff. And many organizations haven't optimized search. This is seen to be the new search. And so being able to have that conversation to find your content, will it save us some time? Certainly hope so.
One tool I'll mention, because we have with the New Zealand Tech Podcast, has partnered with them in the past, and they've been doing some pretty cool stuff, is Process Street. And Process Street have a really powerful platform for managing business processes on, and they are probably one of the fastest moving companies I've seen with how they've tapped into OpenAI's tech. And so they've just launched. It's in beta, but all their users get access to it. You can go into this platform and write a title for a process that you want, and then hit a button, and it will build the business process out for you in all its varying steps and form fields and so on for you. Now it's early days. I wouldn't say it's going to save everyone a lot of time, but it's quite fast moving for a software company to have built that sort of productivity build in, rather than just you can go out here and use Chat GPT and then manually feed bits and pieces in. And look, I think that's an example of how in a lot of cases software companies can build in AI capabilities quite easy, because of tapping into the likes of OpenAI to do the hard stuff, and then they just have to work out how to integrate that in. So if anyone is interested in Process Street, nztechpodcast.com/process-street, and there's our affiliate link there if you want to try it out. Benefit of using that is if you ever convert it to a paid subscription, you do get a lifetime discount, and it supports the New Zealand Tech Podcast. So well worth a mention. It's been key part of my businesses over the last 5 or 6 years, and really cool to see them at the forefront there with AI. Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you, Darrell, for joining New Zealand Tech Podcast today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And big thank you to our show partners, of course, Gorilla Technology, HP, Spark NZ, 2 Degrees, and 1NZ. So thanks, everyone. We'll look forward to catching you again on the next episode next week. See ya.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.